God bless you. Well, today, as always, we study. And as we study, we learn. And as we learn, we grow. Now, today's study is the Apocalypse of Abraham. Now, with this study, you can cross-reference via the Bible. You can cross-reference via the book of Yasha. And you can cross-reference via the book of Jubilees. Now, as we go through, we'll come through verses and chapters, learning of the life of Abraham in the first half. We learn about his father Terah, where he leaves when God calls him out from his land. And the vision given Abraham, the warning of the end, is in the latter half of the book, the Apocalypse of Abraham, in the last half of it. Where as we study, you start to understand the things that will happen, that shall come. Also the warnings of the woes and the sorrows Abraham's people in disobedience go to, and the inclination of wickedness on this earth, and why man is given unto wickedness, the understanding of it, and why it's God that's always calling us out of darkness, but why man keeps going to darkness. The fall of man in creation. This will be a longer than normal study, for we'll be going through this entire book. So, are you prepared to study? God bless you. We shall begin. The Apocalypse of Abraham, son of Terah, son of Nahor, son of Serug, son of Arphaxad, son of Shem, son of Noah, son of Lamech, son of Methuselah, son of Enoch, son of Jared. Chapter 1. On the day I was guarding the gods of my father Terah, and the gods of my brother Nahor, while I was testing to find out which God is in truth the strongest, I then Abraham at the time when my lot came, when I was completing the services of my father Terah's sacrifice to his gods of wood, of stone, of gold, of silver, of copper, and of iron. Having entered their temple for the service, I found a god named Madumath, carved from stone, fallen at the feet of the iron god Narkin. And it came to pass that when I saw it, my heart was perplexed, and I thought in my mind that I, Abraham, could not put it back in its place alone, because it was heavy, being made of a big stone. But I went and told my father, and he came in with me. And when we both lifted it to put it in its place, its head fell off, even while I was holding it by its head. And it came to pass, when my father saw that the head of his god Madumath had fallen, he said to me, Abraham. And I said, Here I am. And he said to me, Bring me the axes and chisels from the house. And I brought them to him from the house. And he cut another Madumath from another stone without a head. And he smashed the head that had fallen off Madumath and the rest of Madumath. He made 5 other gods, and he gave them to me, and ordered me to sell them outside on the town road. I saddled my father's ass, and loaded them on it, and went out in the highway to sell them. And behold, merchants from Fadana of Syria were coming with camels, on their way to Egypt to buy cochineal from the Nile. I asked them a question, and they answered me, and walking along I conversed with them. One of their camels screamed. The ass took fright and ran. It ran away and threw off the gods. This is little g, by the way, when we're using the word gods. 3 of them were crushed, and 2 remained intact. And it came to pass that when the Syrians saw that I had gods, They said to me, "Why did you not tell us that you had gods? We would have bought them before the ass heard the camel's voice, and you would have had no loss. Give us at least the gods that remain, and we will give you a suitable price." I considered it in my heart, and they both paid for the smashed gods and the gods which remained. For I had been grieving in my heart how I would bring payment to my father. I threw the broken gods into the water of the river Gur, which was in this place, and they sank into the depths of the river Gur, and were no more. Now, so far with this, if all this sounds unfamiliar, you'll be able to cross-reference with the books of Jubilees and the books of Yasha. These two books are actually mentioned in your Bible in the Old Testament. It actually mentions things spoken of in these books, and you get this insight from this book expounded upon in both of those books also. Now, as I was still walking on the road, my heart was disturbed, and my mind distracted. I said in my heart, "What is this inequality of activity which my father is doing? Is it not he, rather, who is God for his gods? Because they come into being from his sculpting, his planning, and his skill. They ought to honor my father, because they are his work. What is this food of my father in his works? Behold, Madamath fell, and he could not stand up in his sanctuary, nor could I myself lift him until my father came, and we raised him up. And even so we were not able to do it, and his head fell off of him, and he put it on another stone of another god, which he made without a head." And then this part here is fragmented, so we don't have this next part. Then it continues on. "The other 5 gods which got smashed in falling from the ass, who could not save themselves, and injure the ass because it smashed them, nor did their shards come up out of the river. And I said to my heart, if it is so, how then can my father's god Madumath, which has the head of another stone, and which is made from another stone, save a man, or hear a man's prayer, or give him any gift?" So far at this point, are you starting to understand the reasoning and the thinking in Abraham here? Where, how can this random item, to explain it more simply, be something to worship? How can it be a god? When it falls down, it cannot lift itself up. When someone else breaks it, it cannot harm those that break it. It's only but an item. Holds no value, no worth. It can do nothing. Even if it is sculpted to have eyes, it has eyes that cannot see. Even if it's sculpted with ears, it has ears that do not hear. Even if it has hands upon it, it has hands that cannot do anything with them. You'll see where these things are spoken in Old Testament about idols being as nothing. Now as we continue through, "And thinking thus, I came to my father's house, and I watered the ass, and gave him hay, and I took out the silver, and placed it in the hand of my father Terah. And when he saw it, he was glad, and he said, You are blessed, Abraham, by the God of my gods, since you have brought me the price for the gods, so that my labor was not in vain. And answering, I said to him, Listen, Father Terah, the gods are blessed in you, because you are a God for them, because you made them. For their blessing is in their perdition, and their power is vain. They did not help themselves. How then can they help you, or bless me? I was good for you in this transaction, for through my good sense I brought you the silver for the smashed gods. And when he heard my speech, he became furiously angry with me because I had spoken harsh words against his gods." Consistently, this is all little g. So while he's trying to share the sense of understanding he has in seeing these things, his father does not take heed. Instead, his father becomes furiously angry. As we continue through. But having pondered my father's anger, I went out. And afterward, when I had gone out, he called me, saying, Abraham. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Up, gather wood chips, for I was making gods from fir before you came, and prepare with them food for my midday meal. And it came to pass, when I was choosing the wooden chips, I found among them a small god, which would fit. And then this part here is fragmented again. Then it continues on. In my left hand, and on its forehead was written, God Barisat. And it came to pass, when I put the chips on the fire, in order to prepare the food for my father, and going out to inquire about the food, I put Barisat near the enkindling fire, saying to him threateningly, Barisat, watch that fire does not go out before I come back. If the fire goes out, blow on it so it flares up. I went out and made my counsel. When I returned, I found Barisat fallen on his back, his feet enveloped by the fire and burning fiercely. And it came to pass, when I saw it, I laughed, and said to myself, Barisat, truly you know how to light a fire and cook food. And it came to pass, while saying this in my laughter, I saw that he burned up slowly from the fire and became ashes. I carried the food to my father to eat. I gave him wine and milk, and he drank. And he enjoyed himself, and he blessed Madomath, his god. And I said to him, Father Terah, do not bless Madomath, your god. Do not praise him. Praise rather Barisat, your god. Because as though loving you, he threw himself into the fire in order to cook your food. And he said to me, Then where is he now? And I said, He is burned in the fierceness of the fire, and become dust. And he said, Great is the power of Barisat. I will make another today, and tomorrow he will prepare my food. So even though this thing that can't do anything, that literally just got whelped up by the fire itself, he still isn't figuring it out what his son's really saying to him. So, as we continue through, when I, Abraham, heard words like this from my father, I laughed in my mind, and I groaned in bitterness and anger of my soul. I said, How then is a figment of a body made by him? Terror and aid for my father. Or can he have subordinated his body to his soul to a spirit, and the spirit to stupidity and ignorance? And I said, It is only proper to endure evil, that I may throw my mind to purity, and I will expose my thoughts clearly to him. I answered and said, Father Terah, whichever of these gods you extol, you err in your thought. Behold, the gods of my brother Nahor, standing in the holy sanctuary, are more venerable than yours. For behold, Zukius, my brother Nahor's god, is more venerable than your god Maromath, because he's made of gold, valued by man. And if he grows old with time, he will be remodeled, whereas Maromath, if he is changed or broken, will not be renewed, because he is stone. What about Eowav, the god on the other god, who stands with Zukios? For he is also more venerable than the god Barisat. He's carved from wood and forged from silver, because he too is a term of comparison, being valued by man according to external experience. But Barisat, your god, when he was still not carved, rooted in the earth, being great and wondrous with branches and flowers and praise. This next part is fragmented, and then it continues on. But you made him with an axe, and by your skill he was made a god. And behold, he has already dried up, and his fatness has perished. He fell from the height to the earth, and he came from greatness to smallness, and the appearance of his face wasted away, and he himself was burned up by the fire, and he became ashes, and is no more. And you say, let me make another, and tomorrow he will make my food for me. But in perishing he left himself no strength for his own destruction. So these idols being made, they can't do anything. But this one made of gold, and then this one wood molded with silver, and this one that comes from a great tree that made small. But his father still doesn't see it yet. So as we continue through, now in this part we have the two translations side by side, so we'll go through them, and this part will take a little bit longer. So in the first translation, this I say, fire is more venerable in formation, for even the unsubdued things are subdued in it, and it mocks that which perishes easily by means of its burning. But neither is it venerable, for it is subject to the waters. But rather the waters are more venerable than it, and that it is fire, in brackets. Now, from the other translation, this same section again, Abraham, having thought this, came to his father and said, Father Terah, fire is more venerable than your gods, the gold and silver ones, and the stone and the wooden ones, because the fire burns your gods, and your gods being burned obey the fire, and the fire mocks them while it is consuming your gods. But neither will I call it, or in brackets again, fire, God, because it is subjugated to the waters. The waters are more venerable than it, that it being fire, because they overcome fire and sweeten the earth with fruits. But I will not call them God either, for the waters subside under the earth, and are subject to it. But I will not call it a goddess either, for it is dried by the sun and subordinated to man for his work. Now this is where we have the two translations again. More venerable among the gods, I say, is the sun, for with its rays it illuminates the whole universe and the various airs. Nor will I place among the gods the one who obscures his course by means of the moon and the clouds. And then again, in the other translation, the sun I call more venerable than the earth, for with its rays it illuminates the whole universe. But I will not call it a god, because when night comes it becomes murky with darkness. Nor again shall I call the moon or the stars gods, because they too at times during the night dim their light. Listen, Terah, my father, I shall seek before you the God. Now this is big G. Listen, Terah, my father, I will seek before you the God who created all the gods supposed by us to exist. For who is it, or which one is it, who made the heavens crimson and the sun golden? So now we then come again onto the opposite side for the other translation here. But hear this, Terah, my father, let me proclaim to you the God who has created all things. But this is the true God, who has made the heavens crimson and the sun golden, who has given light to the moon and the stars with it, who has dried the earth in the midst of the many waters, who set you yourself among the things, and who has sought me out in the perplexity of my thoughts. If only God will reveal himself by himself to us. And it came to pass, as I was thinking things like these with regard to my father Terah in the court of my house. The voice of the Mighty One came down from the heavens in a stream of fire, saying and calling, Abraham, Abraham. And I said, Here I am. And he said, You are searching for the God of gods, the Creator, in the understanding of your heart. I am he. Go out from Terah your father, and go out of the house, that you too may not be slain in the sins of your father's house. And I went out, and it came to pass as I went out, I was not yet outside the entrance of the court, that the sound of a great thunder came, and burned him and his house, and everything in his house down to the ground, 40 cubits. Now from this point, you can actually cross-reference with Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. So Genesis 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. He's being called out of his father's home. And at this point, we see that his father's home is destroyed. The same as if you go into Genesis, you'll actually find that his dad dies at a younger age. You will find the age of his death. But as we continue reading, then a voice came speaking to me twice, Abraham, Abraham. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Behold, it is I. Fear not, for I am before the world, and mighty, the God who created previously, before the light of the age. I am the protector for you, and I am your helper. Go get me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old she-goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon, and make me a pure sacrifice. And in this sacrifice I will place the ages. I will announce to you guarded things, and you will see great things, which you have not seen, because you desired to search for me. And I called you my beloved. But for 40 days abstain from every kind of food cooked by fire, and from drinking of wine, and from anointing yourself with oil. And then you shall set out for me the sacrifice which I have commanded you, in the place which I will show you on a high mountain. And there I will show you the things which were made by the ages and by my word, and affirmed, created, and renewed. And I will announce to you in them what will come upon those who have done evil, and just things in the race of man. So right now, did you hear that one word, which were made by the ages and by my what? Word. The word was with God. John 1:1. My word. Now, here, where God says, I am your helper, I am your protector. And what does God do through Genesis? Remember when Abraham went into the land and he was afraid he'd be slain for his wife? And said, say you are my sister. Of course, God always took care of him. Everything he ever did, he prospered. God is there to help, to protect. The more we surrender self and follow God, the more he's there to work in us. This is why quench not the spirit. Trust in God, believe in him, put your faith in him. Do not doubt him. And right here where you see we're being told about the animals for the sacrifice, that's Genesis 15:9. To come across to Genesis 15:9. And he said unto him, Take me a heifer 3 years old, and a she-goat 3 years old, and a ram 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So these are all the things. And then what does it say at the beginning of Genesis 15? Where we've just seen where it says that I am your protector and your helper. Well, after these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abraham in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram. I am thy shield and thy exceedingly great reward. Protector. So, now, we continue on. We see again Isaiah 41. So now we come across into Isaiah. In Isaiah 41, we're going to look at verse 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. I want you to remember that, because when we turn on to the next page, you'll see this. Abraham, my friend. So, as we continue reading. And it came to pass, when I heard the voice pronouncing such words to me, that I looked this way and that, and behold, there was no breath of man, and my spirit was amazed, and my soul fled from me, and I became like a stone, and fell face down upon the earth. For there was no longer strength in me to stand up on the earth. And while I was still face down on the ground, I heard the voice speaking, Go, Joel, of the same name, through the mediation of my ineffable name, consecrate this man for me, and strengthen him against his trembling. So from here, do you remember in Daniel, or again Revelation, where they see the vision and they fall and their strength leaves them? So we have consistency. And as we continue, the angel he sent to me in the likeness of a man came, and he took me by my right hand and stood me on my feet. And he said to me, Stand up, Abram, friend of God. Who is he? Friend of God. What did we just read in Genesis? That's right, friend of God. Sorry, in Isaiah. Exactly. So we continue on. So stand up, Abram, friend of God who has loved you. Let human trembling not enfold you. For lo, I am sent to you to strengthen you, and to bless you in the name of God, creator of heavenly and earthly things, who has loved you. Be bold and hasten to him. I am Joel, and I was called so by him who causes those with me, and on the seventh expanse, on the firmament, to shake a power through the medium of his ineffable name in me. I am the one who has been charged according to his commandment to restrain the threats of the living creatures, of the cherubim against one another. And I teach those who carry the song through the medium of man's night, of the seventh hour. I am appointed to hold the Leviathans, because through me is subjugated the attack and menace of every reptile. Now, if you go into Enoch, you learn about the watches, you learn about all the different things that the angels do. Think about those that hold upon the winds, the hailstorms, all the different weather, the seasons. And we're here, and of course, you know, the cherubim, where you can go back into the beginning of Isaiah. Oh, woe is me, I am undone by a mouth of unclean lips, and the tongue with the hot coal to purge him. So as we continue, I am ordered to loosen Hades and to destroy those who wondered at the dead. I am the one who ordered your father's house to be burned with him, for he honored the dead. I am sent to you now to bless you, in the land which he whom you have called the Eternal One has prepared for you. For your sake I have indicated the way of the land. Stand up, Abraham. Go boldly, be very joyful and rejoice. And I also rejoice with you. For a venerable honor has been prepared for you by the Eternal One. Go complete the sacrifice of the command. Behold, I am assigned to be with you and with the generation which is predestined to be born from you. And with me Michael blesses you forever. Be bold, go. Chief princes, Michael. And as we continue, and I stood up and saw him who had taken my right hand and set me on my feet. The appearance of his body was like sapphire, and the aspect of his face was like chrysolite. and the hair of his head like snow, and a kidderis was on his head. Its looked that of a rainbow, and the clothing of his garments was purple, and a golden staff. Purple is always of position and power. And a golden staff was in his right hand, and he said to me, Abram. And I said, Here is your servant. And he said, Let my appearance not frighten you, nor my speech trouble you. Nor your speech trouble your soul. Come with me, and I will go with you, visible until the sacrifice, but after the sacrifice, invisible forever. Be bold and go. So this can be traced back with Daniel chapter 7 verse 9. So we'll go across to Daniel. And we are in chapter 7 and then verse 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Now we'll see more about those wheels in a moment. But then again, if you go Revelation 1:14, as we continue through, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. So as we continue reading, and we went the two of us alone together 40 days and nights, and I ate no bread and drank no water, because my food was to see the angel who was with me, and his discourse with me was my drink. We came to God's mountain, glorious Horeb, and I said to the angel, Singer of the Eternal One, behold, I have no sacrifice with me, nor do I know a place for an altar on the mountain, so how shall I make the sacrifice? And he said, Look behind you. And I looked behind me, and behold, all the prescribed sacrifices were following us, the calf, the she-goat, the ram, the turtle-dove, and the pigeon. And the angel said to me, Abraham. And I said, Here I am. And he said to me, Slaughter all these and divide the animals exactly into halves, but do not cut the birds apart, and give them to the men whom I will show you standing beside you. For they are the altar on the mountain to offer sacrifice to the Eternal One. The turtle-dove and the pigeon you will give to me. For I will ascend on the wings of the birds to show you what is in the heavens, on the earth, in the sea, in the abyss, and in the lower depths. In the Garden of Eden and its rivers, in the fullness of the universe. And you see its circles in all. And I did everything according to the angel's command. And I gave the angels who had come to us the divided parts of the animals. And the angel Eoel took the two birds, and I waited for the evening gift. And an unclean bird flew down on the carcasses, and I drove it away. So here we can come back into Genesis chapter 15. And chapter 15 is now verse 11. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abraham drove them away. So we have cross-reference. And the unclean bird spoke to me and said, What are you doing, Abraham, on the holy heights, where no one eats or drinks, nor is there upon them food for men? But these all will be consumed by fire, and they will burn you up. Leave the man who is with you and flee. For if you ascend to the height, they will destroy you. And it came to pass, when I saw the bird speaking, I said this to the angel, What is this, my lord? And he said, This is disgrace. This is Azazel. Now you'll actually find that name, Azazel, when it goes back into the time of the Israelites. where they do the sacrifice, the scapegoat. So you'll find that there, but it depends on your translation. So as it says, this is disgrace, this is Azazel. And he said to him, shame on you, Azazel, for Abraham's portion is in heaven, and yours is on earth. For you have selected here, and become enamored of the dwelling place of your blemish. Therefore the eternal ruler, the mighty one, has given you a dwelling on earth. Through you the all evil spirit is a liar. And through you are wrath and trials on the generations of men who live impiously. For the eternal mighty one did not allow the bodies of the righteous to be in your hand. So through them the righteous life is affirmed, and the destruction of ungodliness. Here, counselor, be shamed by me. You have no permission to tempt all the righteous. Depart from this man. You cannot deceive him, because he is the enemy of you, and of those who follow you, and who love what you wish. For behold, the garment which in heaven was formerly yours has been set aside for him, and the corruption which was on him has gone over to you. And the angel said to me, Abraham. And I said, here I am, your servant. And he said, know this, that the Eternal One, whom you have loved, has chosen you. Be bold, and do through your authority whatever I order you against him who reviles justice. Will I not be able to revile him who has scattered about the earth the secrets of heaven, and who has taken counsel against the mighty one? Say to him, may you be the firebrand of the furnace of the earth. Now what's at the center of the earth? How hot it gets. And you get the idea when you go down to the pit. Down below. The firebrand. What did Jesus speak of in Luke 19? He talked about Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man woke up in fiery torment and agony. Go, Azazel, into the untrodden parts of the earth, for your heritage is over those who are with you, with the stars and with the men born by the clouds, whose portion you are. Indeed, they exist through your being. Enmity is for you. A pious act. Therefore, through your own destruction, be gone from me. And I said the words as the angel had taught me. And he said, Abram. And I said, here I am, your servant. And the angel said to me, answer him not. And he spoke to me a second time. And the angel said, now whatever he says to you, answer him not, lest his will run up to you. For the eternal mighty one gave him the gravity and the will, answer him not. And I did what the angel had commanded me, and whatever he said to me about the descent, I answered him not. So you see, the adversary is always there against him. We're told, don't answer him. Don't succumb. Resist the devil. He flees from you. Submit to God and trust in him. So we are warned not to partake in the unfruitful works of darkness. Answer him not. Now as we continue. And it came to pass, when the sun was setting, and behold, a smoke like that of a furnace, and the angels who had the divided portions of the sacrifice ascended from the top of the furnace of smoke. And the angels took me with his right hand, and set me on the right wing of the pigeon, and he himself sat on the left wing of the turtle dove, both of which were as if neither slaughtered nor divided. And he carried me up to the edge of the fiery flame, and we ascended, as if carried by many winds, to the heaven that is fixed on the expanses. And I saw on the air, to those heights we had ascended, a strong light, which cannot be described. And behold, in this light a fiery Gehenna was enkindled, and a great crowd in the likeness of men. They were all changing in aspect and shape, running and changing form, and prostrating themselves, and crying aloud words I did not know. And I said to the angel, why is it you now brought me here? For now I can no longer see. because I am weakened and my spirit is departing from me. And he said to me, Remain with me, do not fear. He whom you will see coming directly towards us in a great sound of sanctification is the Eternal One, who has loved you. You will not look at him yourself, but let your spirit not weaken, for I am with you, strengthening you. And while he was still speaking, behold, the fire coming towards us round about, and a voice was in the fire like a voice of many waters. Remember that? When it talks about the voice of God. There's many waters. Like a voice of the sea in its uproar. And the angel knelt down with me and worshipped. And I wanted to fall face down to the earth, and the place of highness on which we were standing now stopped on high. Now I rolled down low, and he said, Only worship, Abraham, and recite the song which I taught you. Since there was no ground to which I could fall prostrate, I only bowed down, and I recited the song which he had taught me. And he said, Recite without ceasing. And I recited, and he himself recited the song. Eternal One, Mighty One, Holy El, God Autocrat, self-originating, corruptible, immaculate, unbegotten, spotless, immortal, self-perfected, self-devised, without mother, without father, ungenerated, exalted, fiery, just, lover of men, benevolent, compassionate, bountiful, jealous over me, patient, one most merciful, Eli, Eternal Mighty One, Holy Sabbath, most glory, El, Eoel. You are he, my soul is loved, my protector, eternal, fiery, shining, light-giving, thunder, voiced lightning, vision many-eyed, receiving the petitions of those who honor you, and turning away from the petitions of those who restrain you. By the restraint of their provocations, Redeemer of those who dwell in the midst of the wicked ones, of those who are dispersed amongst the just of the world in the corruptible age, showing forth the age of the just. You make the light shine before the morning light upon your creation from your face. To spend the day on earth and in your heavenly dwelling place, there is an inexhaustible light of an invincible dawning from the light of your face. Accept my prayer and delight in it, and accept also the sacrifice which you yourself made to yourself through me, as I searched for you. Receive me favorably, teach me, show me, and make known to your servant what you have promised me. And as I still reciting the song, the mouth of the fire which was on the firmament was rising up on high, and I heard a voice like the roaring of the sea, and it did not cease from the plenitude of the fire. And as the fire rose up, soaring to the highest point, I saw under the fire a throne of fire, and many-eyed ones round about, reciting the song under the throne, 4 fiery living creatures, singing, and the appearance of each of them was the same, each having 4 faces. And this was the aspect of their faces, of a lion, of a man, of an ox, of an eagle. Each one had 4 heads on its body, so that the 4 living creatures had 16 faces, and each one had 6 wings, 2 on the shoulders, 2 halfway down, and 2 at the loins. With the wings which were on their shoulders they covered their faces, with the wings as their loins they covered their feet, and they would stretch the 2 middle wings out and fly erect. And when they finished singing, they would look at one another and threaten one another. And it came to pass, when the angel who was with me saw that they were threatening each other, he left me and went running to them. And he turned the face of each living creature from the face which was opposite, it so that they could not see each other's faces threatening each other. And he taught them the song of peace, which the Eternal One has in himself. And while I was still standing and watching, I saw behind the living creatures a chariot with fiery wheels. Each wheel was full of eyes. Round about and above the wheels was the throne, which I had seen, and it was covered with fire. And the fire it encircled it round about. An indescribable light surrounded the fiery crowd, and I heard the voice of their sanctification, like the voice of a single man. So through here we have Genesis 15 verse 17, And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. So from what we saw earlier, with the burning and the smoke, and then as we carry through into Ezekiel, we now go Ezekiel chapter 1. And in chapter 1, first we shall be in verse 6. Right. From verse 6. And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the colour of burnished brass, and they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and their 4 had their faces and their wings. The wings were joined one to another, they were turned not when they went, and they went every one straight forward. As for the likeness of their face, they 4 had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and the 4 had the face of an ox, and on the left side the 4 also had the face of an eagle. Thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward. 2 wings on every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies. And they went every one straight forward, whither the Spirit was to go they went, and they turned not when they went. So we're talking about this here with the heads, and then again you see this cross-referenced with Ezekiel. And then from verses 15 to 25. Now as I beheld the living creature, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his 4 faces, the appearance of the wheels, and their work was like unto the colour of beryl, and the 4 had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about them 4. So again we see with the many eyes as well. So we're learning about all these things referenced here in Abraham's apocalypse. We also have this here in Ezekiel. So now as we continue on. And a voice came to me out of the midst of the fire, saying, Abram, Abram. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Look at the expanses, which are under the firmament, to which you have now been directed, and see that on no single expanse is there any other but the one whom you have searched for, or who has loved you. And while he was still speaking, behold, the expanses under me, the heavens opened, and I saw on the 7th firmament, upon which I stood, a fire spread out, and a light and dew, and multitude of angels, and a host of the invisible glory. And above the living creatures I had seen, I saw no one else there, and I looked from on high, where I was standing downward to the 6th firmament, and I saw there a multitude of spiritual angels incorporeal, carrying out the orders of the fiery angels, who were on the 8th firmament. As I was standing on its elevation. You can actually cross-reference this with the book of Enoch, and then you can actually go to Paul, New Testament, where he talks about being in body I know not, in the 3rd heaven. This is the layers. So as we continue. And lo, neither on this firmament was there in any shape any other host, but only the spiritual angels. And the host I saw on the 7th firmament commanded the 6th firmament, and it removed itself. I saw there on the 5th firmament hosts of stars, and the orders they were commanded to carry out, and the elements of earth obeying them. And the eternal mighty one said to me, Abram, Abraham. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Look from on high at the stars which are beneath you, and count them for me, and tell me their number. And I said, When can I, for I am a man? And he said to me, As the number of the stars and their power, so shall I place for you your seed, the nations and men, set apart for me in my lot with Azazel. And I said, Eternal and mighty one, let your servant speak before you, and let your fury not rage against your chosen one. Behold, before you led me up, Azazel insulted me. How then, since he is now not before you, did you establish yourself with them? And he said to me, Look now beneath your feet at the firmament, and understand the creation that was depicted of old on this expanse, and the creatures which are in it, and the age prepared after it. And I looked beneath the firmament of my feet, and I saw the likeness of heaven, and things that were therein. So here we can cross-reference back into Genesis. So now back to Genesis, and we're going to go back to chapter 15 and verse 5. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto, So shall thy seed be. As we just see here, of course, how can you count them? And then if we go across to Genesis 18 and verse 27, and Abraham answered and said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Abraham coming to speak unto God, as we've seen here. And then verse 30, and he said unto him, O let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. So we have here speaking again in saying, do not be angry with me, as we do see here at this point also in Genesis. And I saw there the earth, its fruit, and its moving things, and its things that had souls, and its host of men, and the impiety of their souls, and their justification, and their pursuit of their works, and the abyss and its torments, and its lower depths, and the perdition in it. And I saw there the sea and its islands, and its cattle and its fish, and the Leviathan and his realm, and his bed, and his lairs, and the world which lay upon him, and his motions, and the destruction he caused the world. I saw there the rivers and their upper reaches and their circles. And I saw there the garden of Eden, its fruits, and the source and the river flowing from it, and its trees and their flowering, making fruits. And I saw men doing justice in it, their food and their rest. Now Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, that goes into Isaiah, Leviathan, or Leviathan spoken, I believe, in Job also. Leviathan, who will put fish hooks in his jaws. And I saw there a great crowd of men and women and children, half of them on the right side of the portrayal, and half of them on the left side of the portrayal. And I said, Eternal Mighty One, what is this picture of creation? And he said to me, This is my will with regard to what is in the light, and what is good before my face. And then afterward I gave them a command by my word, and they came into existence. Whatever I had decreed was to exist had already been outlined in this. And all the previously created things you have seen stood before me. And I said, O sovereign, mighty, and eternal, why are the people in this picture on this side and on that? And he said to me, Those who are on the left side are a multitude of tribes who existed previously. And then it's fragmented, and then it continues. And after you, some have been prepared for judgment and order, others for revenge and perdition at the end of the age. Those on the right side of the picture are the people set apart for me, of the people with Azazel. These are the ones I have prepared to be born of you, and to be called my people. Look again at the picture. Who is the one who seduced Eve? And what is the fruit of the tree? So here we're seeing where God's talking about those that are prepared for judgment and those that are prepared to be called. Of course, we have this in New Testament explained. And then again, if we have a look now and come across to Psalm 33:9. So we're going to be in Psalm chapter 33. And then verse 9. For he spake, and it was done, and he commanded, and it stood fast. As God says, so does it do. and them I commanded by my word, and they came into existence. See? Psalm 33:9. Now, and we know of those that come unto judgment, and those that were called out since the beginning and the foundation of the earth. And as we continue through, we all know in Genesis 3 of the seduction, the temptation of Eve unto the tree, when she listened to the serpent. So now as we read, look again at the picture. Who is the one who seduced Eve, and what is the fruit of the tree? And you will know what will be, and how much will be for your seed in the last days. And what you cannot understand I will make known to you, because you have been pleasing before my face. And I will tell you what I have kept in my heart. And I looked at the picture, and my eye ran to the side of the Garden of Eden. And I saw there a man very great in height and terrible in breadth, incomparable in aspect, entwined with a woman who was also equal to the man in aspect and size. And they were standing under a tree of Eden, and the fruit of the tree was like the appearance of a bunch of grapes of the vine. And behind the tree was standing something like a dragon in form, but having hands and feet like a man's, on his back 6 wings, on the right 6 on the right, and 6 on the left. And he was holding the grapes of the tree and feeding them to the two I saw entwined with each other. And I said, who are these two entwined with each other? Or who is this between them? And what is the fruit which they are eating? Mighty One, eternal. And he said, this is the world of men. This is Adam. And this is their thought on earth. This is Eve. And he who is between them is the impiety of their behavior unto perdition, Azazel himself. And I said, eternal mighty One, why then did you adjudge him such dominion, that through his works he could ruin humankind on earth? And he said to me, hear, Abraham, those who desire evil, and all whom I have hated as they commit them, over them did I give him dominion, and he was to be beloved of them. And I answered and said, eternal mighty One, why did it please you to bring it about, that evil should be desired in the heart of men, because you are angered at what was chosen by you? And then this part is fragmented, and it continues, him who does useless things in your light. So those who desire evil, Azazel is given dominion over them, because he was beloved of them. So they loved the dark. Remember when Jesus talks about those that love the dark more than the light, because light exposes darkness. So those that want wickedness will love wickedness. And then as we continue through, and he said to me, thus close to the nations, for your sake and for the sake of those set apart after you, the people of your tribe, as you will see in the picture what is burdened on them. And I will explain to you what will be and everything that will be in the last days. Look now at everything in the picture. And I looked and saw there the creatures that had come into being before me. And I saw, as it were, Adam and Eve, who was with him, and with them the crafty adversary, and Cain, who had been led by the adversary to break the law. And I saw the murdered one, Abel, and the perdition brought on him, and given through the lawless one. And I saw their fornication, and those who desired it, and its defilement, and their zeal, and the fire of their corruption in the lower depths of the earth. And I saw their theft, and those who hasten after it, and the system of their retribution, the judgment of the great court. I saw their naked men, forehead to forehead, and I saw their desire, and in her hand was the head of every kind of lawlessness, and her torment and her dispersal destined to destruction. So we're seeing the signs of the end times. And he's saying these are the things that he sees in that end time. And look where we see this desire unto fornication. And of course we live in a day and age where that's very, very much not only a desire and a hunger for it, but it says here, and it's defilement and their zeal. So they got a zeal for it, when you're up for something, you're always up for something. They got a zeal for it. They're hungry to go to it. The world of fornication. And of course here where you see naked men forehead to forehead. There. And we see the increase in theft and those that hasten to it. Where everyone's in a hurry to steal now. These things are gaining traction. All sorts of defilements. So, those that desire every kind of lawlessness, as it says, those that desire all those things, they're destined to what? Destruction. It's right there, same as in Revelation. And all the deeds that do not inherit the kingdom of God. I saw there the likeness of the idol of jealousy, like a carpenter's figure, such as my father used to make. And his body was of glittering copper. And before it a man, and he was worshipping in it. And there was an altar opposite it, and boys being slaughtered on it in the face of the idol. And I said to him, what is this idol? Or what is this altar? Or who are those being sacrificed? Or who is the sacrificer? Or what is the handsome temple which I see? The art and beauty of your glory that lies beneath your throne. And he said, hear, Abraham, this temple, which you have seen, the altar and the works of art, this is my idea of the priesthood, of the name of my glory, where every petition of man will enter and dwell, the assent of kings, prophets, and whatever sacrifice I decree to be made for me among my coming people, even of your tribe. And the body you saw is my anger, because the people who will come to me out of you will make me angry. And the man you saw slaughtering is he who angers me. And the sacrifice is a killing of those who are for me a testimony of the judgment of the completion at the beginning of creation. And I said, Eternal Mighty One, why did you establish it to be so, and to call on the testimonies of this one? And he said to me, hear, Abraham, and understand what I will explain to you, and answer whatever I ask you. Why did your father Terah not obey your voice and abandon the demonic worship of idols, until he perished, and all his house with him? And I said, Eternal Mighty One, surely because it did not please him to obey him, nor did I follow his works. And he said to me, hear, Abraham, as the counsel of your father is in him, as your counsel is in you, so also the counsel of my will is ready in the days to come. You will not know them in advance, nor the future men. You will see with your own eyes that they are of your seed. Look at the picture. People follow their own desires, their own hearts, their own wants, as you see here. And I looked, and I saw, and behold, the picture swayed, and from its left side a crowd of heathens ran out, and they captured the men, women, children were on its right side. And some they slaughtered, and others they kept with them. Behold, I saw them running to them by way of 4 ascents, and they burned the temple with fire, and they plundered the holy things that were in it. And I said, Eternal One, the people you received from me are being robbed by the hordes of the heathen. They are killing some and holding others as aliens, and they burn the temple with fire, and they are stealing and destroying the beautiful things which are in it. Eternal Mighty One, if this is so, why now have you afflicted my heart? And why will it be so? And he said to me, Listen, Abraham, all that you have seen will happen on account of your seed, who will continually provoke me because of the body, which you saw in the murder and what was depicted in the temple of jealousy. Everything you saw will be so. And I said, Eternal Mighty One, let the evil works done in iniquity now pass by, but make commandments in them, more than this, just works. for you can do this. And he said to me again, the time of justice will come upon them, at first through the holiness of kings, and I will judge with justice those whom I created earlier, to rule from them in them. And from these same ones will come men who will have regard for them, as I announced to you, and you saw. And I answered and said, Mighty Eternal One, you who are sanctified by your power, be merciful in my petition, since for this you informed me and showed me, since you have brought me up onto your height. Therefore inform me, your beloved, about whatever I ask. Will what I saw be their lot for long? And he showed me a multitude of people, of his people, and he said to me, for this reason it is through the four ascents you saw that my anger will be because of them, and in them will be retribution for their works. And in the fourth ascent in 100 years and 1 hour the age will also be 100 years in evil among the heathen, and an hour in their mercy even with reproaches, as among the heathen. And I said, Eternal Mighty One, how long a time is an hour of the age? And he said, I decreed to keep 12 periods of the impious age among the heathens, and among your seed, and what you have seen will be until the end of time. Count it up, and you will understand. Look down at the picture. And I looked and saw a man going out from the left. The heathen side, from the side of the heathen went out, men and women and children, a great crowd, and they worshipped him. And while I was still looking, those on the right side came out, and some insulted this man, and some struck him, and others worshipped him. And I saw that as they worshipped him, Azazel ran and worshipped, and kissing his face, he turned and stood behind him. And I said, Eternal Mighty One, who is this man insulted and beaten by the heathen, with Azazel worshipped? And he answered and said, Here, Abraham, the man whom you saw insulted and beaten and again worshipped is the liberation from the heathen for the people, who will be born from you in the last days. In this 12th hour of impiety, in the 12th period of the age of my fulfillment, I will set up this man from your tribe, the one whom you have seen from my people. All will imitate him. You consider him as one called by me. Next part is fragmented and then continues. They are changed in their counsels, and those you saw coming out from the side of the picture are worshipping him. This means that many of the heathen will trust in him, and those of your seed you saw on the right side, some insulting him, some beating him, and others worshipping him. Many of them shall be offended because of him. It is he who will test those of your seed who have worshipped him in the fulfillment of the 12th hour. The curtailing of the age of impiety, before the age of justice starts to grow. My judgment will come upon the heathen who have acted wickedly, through the people of your seed, who have been set apart for me. In those days I will bring upon all the earthly creation 10 plagues, through evil and disease and the groaning of the bitterness of their souls. Such will I bring upon the generation of those who are on it, out of anger and corruption of their creation with which they provoke me. And then from your seed will be left the righteous men in their number, protected by me, who strive in the glory of my name toward the place prepared beforehand for them, which you saw deserted in the picture. And they will live, being affirmed by the sacrifices and the gifts of justice and truth in the age of justice. And they will rejoice forever in me. And they will destroy those who have destroyed them. They will rebuke those who have rebuked them through their mockery, and they will spit in their faces, those rebuked by me, when they are to see me rejoicing with my people. For those who rejoice and receive and truly return to me. See, Abraham, what you have seen here, what you have heard. Know what you have known. Go to your inheritance, and behold, I am with you forever. And while I was still speaking, I found myself on the earth. And I said, Eternal Mighty One, I am no longer in the glory in which I was above, and all that my soul desired to understand in my heart I do not understand. And he said to me, I will explain to you the things you desired in your heart, for you have sought to know the 10 plagues, which I prepared against the heathen, and I prepared them beforehand in the passing of the 12 hours on earth. Hear what I tell you, it will be thus: the first, sorrow from much need; the second, fiery conflagrations for the cities; the third, destruction by pestilence among the cattle; the fourth, famine of the world of their generation; the fifth, among the rulers, and the destruction by earthquake and sword; the sixth, increase of hail and snow; the seventh, wild beasts will be their grave; the eighth, pestilence and hunger will change their destruction; the ninth, execution by sword and flight and distress; the 10th, thunder, voices, and destroying earthquakes. So, with Revelation, you can cross-reference these things that we see. Consider the seals and the openings. And as we continue, and then I will sound the trumpet out of the air, and I will send my chosen one, having in him one measure of all my power, and he will summon my people. So, who's the one that God sends? Well, Jesus comes on the clouds. No one knows the day but the Father. Not the angels, not even the Son knows the day that he sent. And then I will sound the trumpet out of the air, and remember, it will be a trumpet. And I will send my chosen one, having in him one measure of all my power, and he will summon my humiliated ones by the heathen. And I will burn with fire those who mock them and ruled over them in this age, and I will deliver those who have covered me with mockery over to scorn of the coming age. Because I have prepared them not to be food for the fire. I have prepared them to be food for the fire of Hades, and to be ceaseless, soaring in the air of the underworld regions, of the uttermost depths, to be the contents of a wormy belly, for the makers will see in them justice, the makers who have chosen my desire and manifestly kept my commandments. And they will rejoice with merrymaking over the downfall of the men who remain, and who followed after the idols, and after their murders. For they shall putrefy in the belly of the crafty worm Azazel, and be burned by the fire of Azazel's tongue. For I waited so they might come to me, and they did not deign to. And they glorified an alien god, and they joined one to whom they had not been allotted, and they abandoned the Lord who gave them strength. Therefore hear, Abraham, and see, behold, your 7th generation shall go with you, and they will go out into an alien land, and they will enslave them and oppress them as for 1 hour of impious age. But of the nation whom they shall serve I am the judge. And the Lord said this too: Have you heard, Abraham, what I told you, what your tribe will encounter in the last days? Abraham, having heard, accepted the words of God in his heart. Jesus is the one who spoke more about hell than anyone. The worm that does not die and the unquenchable fire. The wormy depths. Now, doing homework some years back with one of my children, we came across about a worm that lives in volcanoes that doesn't die. I find that quite apt, reading this. God has been patient and is waiting for people to come back to him. For it says, for I waited that they might come to me. It's up to them. It says choice, not they will come, but might come to me. And they did not deign to. Remember, Noah, in the 120 years building the ark, calling people to come. But they did not. They could have, but they chose not to. God seeks all to come to the knowledge of the truth, to repent, to turn from sin, to follow him. And that's why he sent his Son, who gave his life and shed his blood, that we could believe in him, because he gave his life in the crucifixion, and he rose again on the third day. He is given all authority in heaven and earth. Matthew 28:18-20. And he tells us what to do. To follow all that he teaches, to obey his commands and do them, to love everyone as ourselves, to love God with all heart, mind, body, strength, and spirit and soul, to love our neighbor as ourselves, to keep the commandments and the faith in Jesus Christ, to persevere, to endure, and to overcome. And those that gladly believed were baptized, to be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the remission of sins and to receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. And it's that Holy Spirit that works in us and guides us. It's up to us if we are to be obedient or disobedient. The choice is ours, for God is waiting for those that might come to him. But many will come in Jesus' name, but Jesus will have to tell them that he does not know them, for they are the practices of lawlessness, those that stay in sin and do not walk away from it, that do not leave it at the foot of the cross. For we are to deny self, pick up our cross, and follow him. For those that do not deny self and do not pick up their cross and do not follow him are not worthy of him. For we are to be imitators of God. We are to be holy, for he is holy. God is perfect, and we are to be perfect. We are to learn from him. If we are to follow him, then we are to walk as him. Learn from him, for student becomes as teacher, disciple as master, servant as master. Learn from Christ. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I hope this is giving you valuable insight that you can use in your studies, and I saw much more here that I did not cross-reference with Bible, for there was verses I had not prepared. So that is my fault. But there, you can cross-reference much here with Old and New Testament. Depending on your translation, you'll also find out more about Azazel and his judgment, and you'll also find him spoken of in Enoch. Now, keep studying, keep praying, keep building your relationship with God. Be at peace in Christ and follow him every step of the way. God bless you all.